So before I begin, I just want to let you guys know I woke up today with a sore throat, and basically everything in this general area of my face doesn't work well today. And
we all have some kind of issue.
if you see me shake, it's because I'm cold, not because I'm nervous. So we're gonna do things a little bit different. I want everyone to just close your eyes for a second. Just close your eyes. Picture this scenario in your head. You're sitting at home. You're relaxing with your family when a knock comes to your door. You go to answer it. You find a cop there standing there. He asks you to come with him. You're being driven to the police station. You discover from the officer that the reason he's taking you into custody is that you've been accused of killing an innocent man and his family in cold blood. You think to yourself, oh, this is all just a big mistake. It's a big mix-up. I spent my last night at Jonathan's house. I couldn't kill him. I'm innocent. Next day you go to court. The witnesses identify you as the killer. The attorneys are speechless. They have nothing more to say in your defense. The gavel hits the block. The judge sentences you to be killed by lethal injection. It's unreal. You didn't do it. You're innocent. They escort you to your cell. You try to sleep, but you can't. You stare at the ceiling. Tears streaming down your cheeks. Why is this happening to me? The sun rises. You still haven't slept a minute. They escort you to a room with a bed. They strap you down. This isn't happening. Finally, it hits you. As the doctor brandishes the needle, you realize this is it. You're going to die. Finally, the needle penetrates your skin, and you feel yourself getting sleepy. Your eyes. Now wake up! Open your eyes. The fate that you just experienced in your head is not a simple illusion. It was the actual fate of dozens of countless individuals who were victims of a corrupt and vicious system known as the death penalty. The death penalty has been documented as far back as the 18th century BC in the Code of King Hammurabi. Ever since then, it's been a legitimate method of punishment around the world. Think of the countless individuals who breathed their last and left this world as innocent victims. Such an absolute judgment is not ours to handle. As society advanced throughout the years, nations began to drop the idea of capital punishment. In fact, the United States is the only country in the Western Hemisphere that still practices the death penalty. Abolishing it would greatly benefit our public image, because not only does it make America seem barbarous and violate many international human rights laws, but it also violates the cruel and unusual clause of our Constitution. The death penalty should be abolished on the grounds that it is unjust, inhumane, biased, ineffective, arbitrary, and expensive. Most people advocate the death penalty because it seems fair and just. Death is the grand equalizer, and if one person takes another person's life, why does he get to live? This philosophy is one of the central tenets of death penalty supporters, but it lacks in the fact that the judgment to end another person's life can only be given intentionally by other people. The executioners are taking the life of another human being. Why should they deserve to live? Okay, so we'll kill them too. Then who's going to execute the executioners who executed the guy? This vicious cycle just repeats itself over and over again, and it's not in the human capacity to handle it. People who consider themselves to be more humane will support the death penalty, but only if the death is executed in a swift and painless manner. Being beheaded or burned at the stake, pretty gruesome way to die. So civilized society has designed death by lethal injection. What few people realize is that this is not actually smooth and painless. Oftentimes, a victim will remain alive for minutes or even hours, suffering and convulsing, before their bodies finally succumb to the deadly toxins designed to kill kindly. It's anything but humane. One of the largest misconceptions is that it is an effective deterrent to crime. If you make a bold example of a few prisoners, then other potential criminals will think twice about doing a crime. However, this is not the case. Most people do not consider consequences when they commit a crime. The heat of the moment clouds proper judgment. But don't just take my word for it. A poll by the Hart Research Associates claimed that over half of all police chiefs in the nation do not believe that the death penalty is a sufficient crime deterrent. In fact, states that have the death penalty have murder rates up to 101% higher than states that do not. Given these statistics, it is safe to conclude that the death penalty does not deter crime, and in fact encourages higher crime rates. Another issue is that those with mental illnesses can still be put to death. Not only does this go against ethical reasoning, it is also considered unconstitutional. One of the largest flaws in the capital punishment system is the possibility of innocent people being put to death. Remember John Proctor? Since 1973, over 140 people were proven innocent and were freed from death row. It's pretty good, until you realize that since 1976, over 1,000 people were not so lucky. They were convicted on very scarce evidence and paid the ultimate price for crimes they did not commit. Among them was Georgian Troy Davis, who was executed 2 years ago for shooting a man to death. 7 of the 9 witnesses who had originally identified him as the killer later recanted and claimed that he was in fact innocent. Whoops. Even more astonishing is the fact that most death sentences are given arbitrarily. Many would suspect that our justice system is quite objective and delivers sound judgments. Historically, we know the opposite is true. Various factors such as politics or the area in which a crime is committed can have a large influence on whether or not a death penalty is given. Gary Ridgway, a serial killer who claimed to have murdered 48 people, was sentenced to life in prison. On the other hand, a mentally ill criminal who had murdered 1 person and could not afford proper legal protection was sentenced to death. See the discrepancy there? Likewise, a man in Alabama by the name of David Hawker was executed after a 1-day trial. The criminal justice system is anything but fair in its judgments, especially in the area of capital punishment. Another alarming flaw is the prospect of racial bias. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, equal numbers of blacks and whites have been murdered since 1977. The strange thing is that over 80% of the people sentenced to death since then were convicted of killing whites. 43% of death row inmates are blacks, despite the fact that they make up only 12% of the United States population. Some of this can be contributed to yet another problem with our legal system: the use of court-appointed lawyers. The majority of death row inmates are convicted while being defended by court-appointed lawyers. These are often the worst paid, most inexperienced, and least skilled lawyers a person can get. According to the American Bar Association, the following guidelines define a good defense in a death penalty case. Attorneys with prior experience working a capital case, a team consisting of 2 attorneys, 1 mitigation specialist, 1 investigator, and proper funding for travel investigations and other necessary components of the case. Not a single state meets these standards, and only a handful pay well enough to retain competent, reliable lawyers. Because of the absolute nature of sentencing someone to death, there must be evidence that proves with almost complete certainty that a convicted person is guilty of a particular crime. Most cases, however, do not obtain adequate amounts of evidence and spend years filtering through our court system. Why waste so much time searching for evidence if you are a quarter of a third of an eighth of 15% sure that person X killed person Y, maybe somehow sometime in December of yesteryear? Appeals can drag cases involving capital punishment on for years before reaching a conclusion. This drains families of both the victims and the accused criminals emotionally and elicits sympathy for the potential perpetrators. Not to mention that the fact that doing so, it costs enormous sums of money, and that executing a prisoner costs even more. A New Jersey Policy Perspectives report stated that taxpayers had paid over $243 million for executions since 1983. On average, the cost to execute a prisoner on death row is $2 million. The death penalty only serves to make our government more wasteful of taxpayer dollars and more inefficient due to its clogged courts. The death penalty is not something that we should be proud of supporting. It is a barbaric and childish manner of dealing with grave problems. Advanced societies should be finding solutions to problems and discovering alternatives. Life in prison without parole is one such idea. If we as a society are to advance, we must move away from the eye for eye mentality and should continue in a new direction. The penalty may seem like a good idea to some, but it sends the wrong message. Why kill people to show that killing people is wrong? We should be better than what we are in our weakest moments. If we are to improve as a civilization and as a species, then we must move away from ineffective, primitive methods. We should move toward progress and should desire to think in multiple perspectives. Out with the old and in with the new. Let's bring that to the death penalty. Thank you.